Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Mark.
Morning, Mark.
Morning.
2-minute warning.
Morning.
Yeah, everybody, it's afternoon.
That's right. And it's sunny here in
No,
Area D.
Yeah,
Here
that's
in
so
When you-
nice.
we're like
When you had a-
Newfoundland here. We're a half hour. We're a half hour difference.
Have you got rain?
No, it's overcast, threatening, but nothing yet.
We got sun and wind up here at Stories Beach.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking forward to the wind dying down so I can wear my kilt again.
Yeah.
For some reason, nobody else is looking forward to it. Just me.
Very thoughtful of you, Mark.
I know. Oh, it's because I'm shy.
Yeah. Right. Mhm.
Okay, directors. Good afternoon. For
Good.
those of us that are in the boardroom, we're coming from the unceded traditional territory of the Lakwa-speaking people. I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know why. Is that better now? No. Edie, what did I do wrong?
You're loud and clear here, bud.
Here it is. Is that better now? Okay, it was just me getting
Okay.
feedback from my own laptop. Anyways, we have confirmation of quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Before the adoption of the public agenda, we got one addition. Chair Cornfield wants a quick discussion on something on solid waste. So we'll put that underneath new business. So with that, I would like to move the adopted agenda as amended.
I'd move that the agenda be amended also to include, as well as Director Cornfield's item, the addendum that was sent out to us regarding the
already
VHOC
there.
contract.
It's
there?
already,
Okay.
It's already on the agenda.
On the agenda. Okay, so that I would move the agenda be adopted as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Director Abram. All in favor? Oh, sorry. I'm at SRD now. Opposed? Seen none, carried. Thank you. Petition delegations. We have Sean Smythe and Miles Randall from Team Aeronautical Medical will present a regarding a team grant request, and I think Miles is online. And just to remind our presenters, you have 10 minutes. Ready, set, go.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just trying to open the share tray. Sean, are you able to share the presentation?
I got it. Edith has it here, so she can throw it up on you for your.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Very much appreciated. My name is Miles Randall. I'm president of Team Aeromedical, and I always like to crack the joke. I'm not only president, but I'm also a member. So I'm an advanced life support paramedic that also works out in the field with the crew. If we can advance the slide, that would be great. I've been in emergency services now for a little over 30 years, both with BC Ambulance Service as a search and rescue volunteer, as a pro-ski patroller, and including time at the Canadian Forces School of Search and Rescue and the Justice Institute of Paramedic Academy. And if we can slide it on there. So January 19th of 2014 was a pivotal day for us at Team Aeromedical. It was the day that our friend Tim Jones passed away in the mountains of North Vancouver. Our vice president and myself were actively part of that resuscitation team, and we're unfortunately not able to get to him in time. If we can move a slide forward, in April 1st of 2014, we were assigned as search and rescue volunteers to a 24-year-old female in cardiac arrest in the mountains just outside of Squamish. She had been frozen into a tree well for 7 hours and underwent 4 hours of CPR We kind of broke every rule in the book, and were able to get her to a specialty medical resource that helped her make a complete recovery. And so after four hours of CPR, she made a complete recovery. If we can advance this slide, that'd be great. That left us in a bit of a quandary that we knew that there was a massive gap in pre-hospital care in British Columbia, and it needed to be filled. So we approached BC Ambulance Service and we approached Search and Rescue, and neither program were interested in taking on the liability of doing that. So we created our own program. If we can advance the slide. It's a medically directed rescue program. It's one of its kind for Canada, but it's been proven to work in Switzerland, Australia, and New Zealand for the last 50 years. We actually bring the emergency department to the scene as opposed to transporting a patient to medical care. We bring medical care to them. If you can advance the slide. So in January 2017, we created our program. It's TEAM, which stands for Technical Evacuation Advanced Aeromedical. And go ahead and advance the slide. We're a not-for-profit program that's fully focused on patient care and not profits. We're absolutely focused on doing the best thing for the patient. If we can advance the slide. Family-oriented and supportive program. And again, advance. We're a trauma-informed program. Most of us, myself included, have survived post-traumatic stress, and we've built a program that is focused on allowing our staff to do quite well and thrive in the work environment that we have, as well as supporting people's post-traumatic stress, like a tragic mission we did this morning, where the people that were working with someone who passed away are receiving post-traumatic stress care from our staff. Go ahead. We're an equal opportunities employer. We're gender equal and BIPOC equal employer. We're quite happy to say that 50% of our workforce is female, and we're well reflected with cultural diversity with our program. About 2 weeks after we started our program, we read a report from the BC Forest Safety Ombudsman that showed that there were significant gaps in pre-hospital care in BC that we knew about, but also pointed out that the forestry very much needed our help. To give you an example, Alaska, which has a similar geography to BC, they have 760,000 residents, 31 air ambulance helicopters, about a third of them are hoist equipped. So it's one air ambulance helicopter for every 24,500 residents. In BC, 5 million residents, there are 4 air ambulance helicopters. So that's one air ambulance helicopter for every 1.25 million residents, and none of them are hoist equipped, which means that they can't access people in remote and challenging situations. We work under the jurisdiction of BC Emergency Health Services, so they've given us permission to respond to remote and austere settings that are beyond the reach of traditional ambulance services. We do work outside of the search and rescue jurisdiction, although we do work with them, such as this morning when it's in the best interest of the patients. The example with the Canadian Forces Search and Rescue, their mandate is air and marine emergencies, and then lastly, humanitarian aid. With volunteer search and rescue, they're responsible for inland, ground, water search and rescue. They're not an air ambulance, and they don't respond to industry unless other resources are exhausted. Go ahead. October 19th of 2018 was our first mission. Ironically, we responded to that same location this morning. This case was a logger that got hit in the back with a fairly large tree and knocked down the bank 50 feet. It shattered his spine, created a fairly significant risk of a spinal cord injury, collapsed his lung, broke a number of ribs, and caused a fairly significant amount of trauma. Go ahead. We were on scene in 35 minutes at a very remote site. We medicated his pain away, controlled his anxiety and nausea, medicated his blood pressure to keep his spinal cord protected, used cutting edge medical tools such as vacuum spine boards, as well as ultrasound to be able to look at his lungs to determine if we needed to reinflate a lung or give him medications to control internal hemorrhage. And we were able to transport him with ongoing advanced life support care to a trauma center versus the local hospital in 1/10 of the traditional time frame it takes to get someone to a trauma center. He received emergent neurosurgery and was able to walk out of the hospital some weeks later, as opposed to being paralyzed, which the neurosurgeon is convinced would have happened had he been brought out the traditional way. That's what's most important to us, is the fact that he was able to walk out of the hospital and go back to a normal life. But it also prevented a significant amount of cost for the healthcare system and for WorkSafe BC for a very small cost. It was $4,520 cost for our medevac, and it saved $9 million in taxpayer and WorkSafe costs. We've got a base in Squamish that we call Team 1, which does currently cover Vancouver Island, but it does take about an hour to get to where you are. Team 2 is based out of Prince George, and we can fly 2 hours and 20 minutes on a tank of fuel, refuel, and kind of be anywhere in the province. Team 3 is Fort St. John, and Team 4 will be Campbell River. And from Campbell River, we'll be able to cover the entire island and up the coast as well. Go ahead. We employ paramedics, nurses, doctors, AutoX technicians, swiftwater rescue technicians, mountain guides, and other rescue technicians. And we literally do bring the emergency department to the accident scene. Here, we're working on a patient who's crushed by a log, and we're bringing an automated CPR device and tools like ultrasound to the scene so that we can properly treat the patient with advanced life support or critical care medicine. Go ahead. And we'll move past that slide there. The other thing that we bring is experience, where most of our practitioners have between 10 and 40 years of experience. So we're able to make decisions on the fly that are in the best interest of the patient based on experience as well as protocol. Legal with Transport Canada. We're also legal with BC Ambulance Service, which is the next slide, I believe. Go ahead and we'll move to the next slide. I'm racing through here. We have an agreement with the Ambulance Paramedics Union that will always work with them on missions. Have a shared approach to funding where Canadian Forces, for example, if they use us, they'll pay the bill as well as with the RCMP. We're working on local government relationships, such as meeting with you guys today, to help us with funding so that we can get started in various locations. And then we have a membership program that covers the industry side of things or remote communities. So that helps us keep our lights on. And then when it comes to a rescue, it's typically covered by insurance costs. And so once we're up and running, we're a self-sustainable program, and we just need support to actually get up and running. Go ahead. And go ahead. Racing through the slides. You can call Team Direct, which does cut a significant amount of time out of our responses. So you phone our Air Ops coordinators, and you'll get experienced medics that will give you advice over the phone and get crews going to the correct location with the correct resources. Go ahead. Benefits to patient care are massive. Rapid access to advanced life support critical care, which most of the province doesn't get, and rapid transport in any terrain. Go ahead. And we'll skip past that slide because I think we're getting out of time here. And we'll skip past that one as well. And lastly, I think there's a question slide coming up just about here. So do you have any questions at all?
Thank you very much. And I'll open the floor for questions. Director Abram.
Yes, thank you very much for that incredibly excellent presentation that you gave in a record-breaking time. Really, really good job. Your team sounds phenomenal. I was a lighthouse keeper for 25 years and worked with 442 Squadron quite a bit, and did our own rescues also. But I certainly empathize with everything you've shown. Of course, we're being asked for funding, and other organizations are too. I guess my first real quick question is, from the information that we got in our agenda, it looked like industry had really submitted a pittance so far, and I'm hoping that that's going to change. I think it was $10,000 was the listing in our report. And it seems like industry is probably one of the, major benefactors in this, along with all of the other, mountain climbers, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'd like to see that answered as to what's with industry. Why aren't they jumping on this like a, dirty shirt? And secondly, there was talk of the um, financial, the financials for your group. Normally, when we as electoral areas, anyway, as opposed to municipalities, we put forward a grant and aid request for a specific group, a nonprofit or whatever, that benefits the community, and we always submit with it all of the financials, like the previous year's budget and money and the ask, what it's for, where it's going. And I see in the report that we got that we don't have that yet and that we will see it at some point. But I just suggest that, sooner the better. And I just want to make one last comment because of the wildfire situation that we had over the years. We had, world-class water bombing facilities in Port Alberni. I won't mention any names except for Mars. And, I don't want to see your services expand to the point where you're not available to us, but you are contracted to others. Want to have some sort of assurance in the granting process that we will be given first crack at your services and not get a call that says, well, they're in Saskatchewan or whatever. So anyway, just a few little points.
And to answer those questions, they're all very valid questions. Industry, so Truck Loggers Association on the North Island has donated 10,000 so far. Some of the larger players are stepping up as we speak. So we've kind of pushed the snowball to the edge of the slope, and they're starting to step up and commit to funding. So I think we're seeing just the start of industry funding us. Fingers crossed for sure. Financials are pending, and we will send them to you shortly. And then your last point is definitely very valid, and Wildfire is an agency that's come to us for resources, and our commitment to Wildfire has two sides to it. That we have regional bases, and then if Wildfire needs a response, they will have a different aspect of team come out and work specifically for them. So we will always have the regional assets to be able to respond to local responses such as what you're suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, if I could real quick, Brad, I wasn't really suggesting that you would actually be working the wildfires, but that I used it as an analogy that we won't see your services moved somewhere else, like I've seen some fire services moved somewhere else. BC company.
Yeah, we're definitely committed to the province of BC. We do have a plan to put 7 bases in total. But ironically, the North Island will be incredibly well covered with the Team 4 Campbell River base, as well as coverage from Squamish. So.
Okay, thank you, Director Abram. John, did you want to add to the comments?
Yeah, thanks, Director. I could answer actually one of those questions that Jim mentioned on the wildfire and the industry. VIH Helicopters has dedicated an aircraft to this program, which is at their own cost for a machine sitting waiting for these rescues. That's an incredible donation that they're making, even though it's not financial. It's going to be machine on hold, and that's one of the reasons why I have a little bit of anxiety about it now, because we have a team, we have an aircraft, and it's mid-March, and so we're about 2.5 months away from fire season. If we don't start utilizing that aircraft, we will lose it to fires, right? So the point that Jim brought up is actually very pertinent, because we have resources here. The only thing we're waiting for is equipment to get the program going. So Yeah, and there's a little bit I'd like to talk about. Just give me another 2 minutes at the end, but let people ask some more questions.
Go. We have Director Lee and then Director Moglov. Director Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I supported the request for, I believe it was $40,000 out of the $50,000 that we have available in our regional grant and aid pot to help you get started. However, I see this service as being primarily a healthcare service, a medical service that really should be funded by Island Health through the province for Vancouver Island. You're preventing people from, ending up in long-term disability care in the hospital. They're able to walk away from an accident because you're there quickly and you give them the care they need quickly. But it is medical care, and traditionally local government doesn't provide medical care. We're not a medical body. And I have a little difficulty going over the line, taking on what I see as what should be a provincially funded service, crossing the line into local and taking money from the local property taxes, because they're not the people that are getting generally the helicopters. It's those people out working in the woods and out in remote places. But anyway, that's my conundrum, is that I'm happy to help you get started, but I think that the SRD would need to get some assurance that Island Health was going to financially support the service in the long run.
To speak to that, I do agree with you. And having worked in provincial healthcare system for 20 years, I wish that would happen, but it isn't going to happen in the near or medium term. There's just no appetite for government to step up and do this, which is why we've created the program the way it is. There's a massive gap in pre-hospital care in BC. The government itself doesn't want to recognize that. And so we've created a program to fill that gap. Will they pay for it in the long run? I hope so. But at this point, we're making it work, and we're asking for regional support, much like the STARS program in Alberta, where they get 25% of their budget is government funding, and the rest is significant amount of fundraising that they do every year to make sure that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have a top-notch air ambulance system, and it is based on community support for sure.
Okay, thank you. I've got Director Moglov and then Director Baker. Director Moglov, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. So just to clarify, I understand that the funding that you're looking for at this point in time is to cover the initial capital costs of the program and not ongoing operational expenses. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
I thought so. So if I understood the slide correctly in terms of the coverage of Team 4, is it? It would cover most of Vancouver Island and actually may even go on to the Sunshine Coast to a certain extent. So the question I had is, have you approached the other regional districts on the island for funding as well? I'm thinking of the Alberni, Clayoquot, Nanaimo, Mount Waddington, et cetera, and have you approached them and have they provided funding for this?
We're in the initial stages of approaching them. We're a little further ahead with this group because of Sean Smythe working so hard as an advocate for us. But we are in the initial process of approaching any group that may support us. And so, yeah, I guess the answer is yes.
But so far, no specific funding from any of those regional districts?
Not yet.
Okay. The other question, if I might, Your Worship, Mr. Chair. So the Team 1, Team 2, 3, and 4, so I know that you're a nonprofit organization. I presume you're a society registered with the province. Is each team a separate nonprofit, or is it one nonprofit for the entire organization?
One nonprofit for the entire organization.
Okay. And then final question is, in terms of teams 1, 2, and 3, I would really love to know what type of funding that you've received from regional districts and/or municipalities in those areas. Just to get a sense of what other regional districts are doing across the province for this type of program, because I have nothing to sort of relate the ask to compare to what other local governments are doing across the province.
I think the best example of that is the Peace River Regional District up in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek area, where they've actively been donating $176,000 a year annually to STARS. And now they've switched. So we're in the process of receiving clearance to get that funding from them so that they're supporting a local program that has a faster response time and does more. And so that's probably our best indicator of regional support is the Peace River Regional District. We haven't received funding from them yet, but we're in the process.
And are there any other regional districts in the province that you are receiving or did receive funding for the initial setup in zone 1, 2, 3, and 4? Okay.
Not yet, no.
Okay, thank you. And then I've got Director Baker.
Just a couple of quick comments. One, and from what Director Moglove is asking, to me, I understand that there's not any other regional districts involved at this point, but I think it would be really good and it would look good on the SRD to take the lead on that. I believe full-heartedly in this program. I understand that the government is not funding the program, and nor should we wait for the provincial or federal government to jump aboard. This is something I believe is crucial for the rural communities and to save people's lives. So I really think it would be good for the SRD to take the lead on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Director Adams.
Thank you, and thank you, Miles, for the presentation and also the service that you're advocating to provide. Also appreciate the answer to the question of the clarification of if it's a capital request versus an operational request. And as you can appreciate, as a large board as we are, sometimes we are a little bit reticent to just write a check. And if there is any way that you could provide a quote unquote shopping list that has some price breakdown that is more tangible as to where the money is going, so that we can have that accountability from our perspective as well, would be really helpful.
Absolutely, we're happy to do that. I've actually got something in front of me that I can send you.
Thank you.
And we would be happy if there's specific pieces of equipment that you as a group choose to fund. We would be happy to put your logo on it and thank you for those specific pieces of equipment.
Excellent. So I got one more Director Colburn.
Thank you, Chair. Further to Director Moglov's questions about other regional districts and their contributions further out through the province, I'm just curious about how you got started for your, base capital for other areas. Was it mainly industry, or what were the, kind of main players in that? Thanks.
The blunt truth is that for the Team 1 base, I lent a lot of equipment from another company that I had teaching people how to provide medical care in remote settings. We had a charity called TB Vets donate the really expensive cardiac monitoring devices, the automated CPR devices, and that kind of thing. We really begged, borrowed, but didn't steal to get the program going. With as much support as possible. And so, yeah, there wasn't any regional district or government funding. We just got together as a group and actively went out and found ways to make it happen, including loaned equipment, donations from other companies and other charities.
Great, thank you. So I have one more director, and then Sean wants to probably have a minute to wrap up here. So Director Anderson.
Thank you, Miles, for your work and your couple presentations to the board. And I know we've certainly deliberated on it since. And I guess my thoughts really for us in our consideration is that either we think this is a fantastic project and just get behind it now. I'm really hearing, Miles, and your colleague, your timing, your comments around timing, that if we, wait a few more months, we're going to lose this, and we only meet every few weeks and we get information back from you, and then it takes another few months, and who knows, we've been at this quite a while. Or, and if we want to do that, we just take leadership and we say, here's the 40 grand. And we put a call out to all of our regional district colleagues with a challenge to do the same. And whether that's sponsoring a particular piece of equipment or not, I don't particularly care, or decide to not do this. But I think that dragging this out a whole lot longer is really not going to be of service to the program. And I'm willing to support it at this point. Thanks, Miles.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Anderson. So I don't see any more questions up, so I'll let Sean have a minute or so here to put his 2 cents in.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and very thoughtful questions this time around, which is awesome. I just want to give a little bit of background as to why now and why I see this regional district in this area for Team 4 a little bit different than all the other ones. Is that I've been flying on the coast here for 17 years, pilot over 20 years. So my whole time here historically is whenever this is why we're just working on the logging industry as well, specifically, because I see this as a program that helps everybody, but we're really focusing towards forestry right now. And the reason for that is when a logger gets hurt in the bush for the last 20 years, there's a scrambling, radio calls, phone calls. They call Ed Wilcox from E&B Helicopters. And he'll scramble and send one of his machines, and whether it's Ed himself or sometimes it's Sean Smythe showing up in a 1967 Jet Ranger, saying, okay, guys, let's figure out how to get our buddy home and to the hospital. And whatever rules we break today keeps between us. And that's the way we've done it for years. And just over 2 years ago, we lost Ed Wilcox, and just over a year ago, we lost E&B. And so today, there's really nothing in place. The local helicopter companies are in place now. We're just not set up to do what Ed did. And kind of the newer generation, we're not willing to work in that gray area and bend and break rules all the time. And this is a solution to do those. This is a solution to the gap that's currently existing to the healthcare in our district. And this is a solution how to make it legal and do it properly. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this. And I've been focusing on the regional district here for initial funding because I do exactly what the directors are saying here. Once, if we get a blessing from the regional district here in donation, we're taking that to all the other regional districts. Say, hey, look, match this. You got to step up too because you're going to benefit as well. And it also makes a bigger support with the province as well and higher up the chain in the government, because whatever the decisions are made with the board here, we're gonna present that to the other levels of government as well. So thanks everybody for the time.
Great, thank you very much. Miles, thank you very much. And Sean, another great presentation. Director Colburn.
I just wanted to make a motion to receive the presentation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Director Lee. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Does our presenter know that we're dealing with this matter at the top of the agenda?
I believe he does, yes.
Thank you.
If not, he does now. The adoption of the minutes for the regular board meeting February 23rd.
So moved.
Director Colburn.
Second.
Director
Second.
Baker. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Saying none. Public considerations? Notice of motion. Chair's report. I've got a couple things. The other day, you sat in on an agriculture roundtable with MLA Babchuk, mayors, First Nations, industry leaders. And through that discussion, I'm very happy to say, and I can see the letter's already been sent, I think the whole group sitting at the table sent a very strong message to our MLA, in which MLA Babchuk heard us, and a letter has now been sent from the Premier to the Prime Minister of Canada for discussions on the aquaculture industry on the North Island. It took us quite a while to get there, but we got there, so that's good. Actually, MLA Babchuk was in Gold River on Monday. Our, I guess, annual discussions with mayor and council, and we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to tour the new Greek seafood expansion hatchery. It's a state-of-the-art. It's unbelievable. The technology nowadays, from what was 20 years ago, it's just unbelievable. And I know Mayor/Director Adams is always saying, we got to base these decisions on science. And when you look at what they're doing today, because of that, it's just incredible. Sat in on the quarterly resource with Canberra River Council the other day and BC Salmon Farm Association. This is something the Canberra River Council has been doing now for a while, whether it's forestry or agriculture. And it's nice to be part of that discussions. And I truly appreciate it, not only from the Mayor of Gold River, but with all communities within the Strathcona District. It's been great. Released yesterday from Connected Coast, Last Mile campaign has now started. Sign up, Quadra Island, Sayward Valley, Zabalas, Tassos, Gold River. So when you go back, it's an easy little link. Hit the button where it says City West and has to be signed up. It's free of charge. This is basically just giving permission for City West to come in and put the last mile connection to your home. It is free right now. If they don't sign up and do it as in this period, 6 months from now, when we're all connected and we've got our fantastic high-speed internet, it'll cost them money to get hooked up then. So when you go back to your communities, try and steer them on and get them signed up as soon as you can. The last thing I've got is AVICC is coming up in 3 weeks in Victoria. For those directors that are going, I'll see you there. And that's my verbal report.
Move receipt of chair's report.
Second.
Moved in second. Director Moglove?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Director Evans is running for second vice, I think it is. So let's all support her in her, you know what I'm saying.
Your campaign.
In her campaign. Thank you very much. And spread the word.
Thank you, Director Moglove. Really appreciate that. Look forward to seeing everybody at AVICC. Thanks.
Excellent. Motion on the floor. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Last one. On committee reports, First Nations Relations Committee. Motion to receive the minutes for the regular meeting on February 23rd.
Motion to receive.
Colburn, seconder. Director Davis. Any discussion? Director Colburn.
I forget which item it is. It is motion 1222, that a staff report following the response from Comox be provided, and I was not here, so I cannot be a seconder of that. Thanks.
We will fix the minutes. And we won't ask where you were. Any thoughts? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. The Municipal Service Committee meeting, regular minutes for the February 23rd meeting.
Move receipt.
Move receipt, Evans.
Director Evans, second by Director Colburn. Any errors, omissions?
I just had a question.
Yes.
There are no, I don't believe any in-camera coming to the board from this meeting, but there's a recommendation that was made in camera at that committee. And I don't have access to the minutes, so I don't know what the discussion was. I'm a little shocked to see recommendation pop up on our board agenda that the rest of the board hasn't been apprised of. So I'd like to see those closed minutes from that committee of February 23rd.
CEO. Are you talking about the Municipal Service Committee?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the minutes don't reflect discussion within the committee meeting. So there was a resolution that's before the board today. So I'm not sure what minutes those would be. Tom may have something else.
February 23rd closed municipal, and there was no notification to the rest of the board regarding the recommendation that's popping on the agenda today.
Okay,
and I don't think that's fair to the rest of us.
Okay.
I'll let Tom answer in a second, but we do that for all committees, whether it be electoral areas, municipal services, First Nations. Those recommendations from those committees will come forward for board endorsement, so that the recommendation you see today is, it came from municipal services in camera. So I think that follows our standard procedure, but I'll let Tom fill in the blanks here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be attaching the closed minutes from the Municipal Services Committee to the next board closed agenda. That is the system that we currently use. So, and they'll be very short, quite frankly, but they will be attached for the directors to see.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yates. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Staff reports, team, aeromedical funding request. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Colburn, second.
Concur.
Kerr, thank you.
Subsequent.
And I'll go to CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't think this needs much of an introduction after the presentation. So what we have at this point is a couple options for the board to consider and or an additional resolution if somebody has one.
Thank you, CEO. And I've got Director Kerr and Director Abram. Director Kerr, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I was just going to make a subsequent on that initial motion, but I'll hold for that.
Thank you. Director Abram.
Yeah, my motion was just going to be very simple, that the amount of $40,000.
We're on receipt.
$40,000.
Okay, we're still on receipt though.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I thought you had already called the question.
No. Is there anything on receipt, or Director Lee?
I made a note here on my agenda that requesting that staff develop an application form for these regional grants.
We're on receipt.
Similar. Yeah, okay, that'll follow then.
Go. I don't see anything else on receipt. Director Cornfield,
Yes.
on receipt?
Yep, on receipt.
Go ahead, please.
What is our, what's our population in the entire SRD boundaries?
Yeah, I think it's
44.
Yeah, 45,000 roughly, I think.
Yeah, I would take a guess at 45,000.
Okay, no, that's close enough. I was just, because there's two ways to look at things. One is on a per capita and the other's on a property basis, right?
Okay,
So.
thank you. Okay, is there anything else on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Kerr, I have you first.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with option A, which is to hold a vote on the pending motion to award $40,000 grant to Team Aeromedical and a letter of support be provided.
Second.
Second that.
Second, Dave from.
Okay, so we got moved by Director Kerr, second by Director Colburn. Is there any further discussion, Director Colburn?
And that was a letter of support to go along with that. And could we make sure that that was given out to the regional districts within Vancouver Island area?
Mr. Yates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the motion on the floor is whether or not to bring forward the motion that has already been made, which included the awarding of a grant and the letter of support. And if this motion passes, then I believe that the motion to award the grant and provide the letter is then up for a vote. So right now, I think the question is whether we bring that forward or not.
Okay. So everybody's clear. Director Adams?
Thank you. And just wondering if the mover and seconder would consider a friendly, and that is just following up on my question to the presenter to ensure accountability and transparency, that we get confirmation of what the 40,000 would be purchased for, so that we we can kind of connect the dots on the piece of equipment that is being purchased. Thank you.
Director Kerr?
I have no problem as a mover.
And Director Colburn says she's fine with that. Okay, Director Cornfield, you have your hand up?
Yep. Would it be in order to increase that amount to $45,000? In other words, or does that come before we do the next part?
Yeah, let's do the next part. The motion on the floor right now is the 40,000.
Okay, but how do we amend that amount?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. My understanding from Tom was that the motion on the floor is simply whether we will discuss the motion around 40,000.
That's correct.
If we can hold the vote on this one, then there might be amendments to the motion we're lifting from the table.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay, I will hold my reaction till later.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to go question on the motion. So everybody's clear. We're just bringing back that the SRD through the Regional Grant and Aid promote team with a one-time grant of $40,000 to purchase medical equipment, and that a letter of support be provided to team. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Mr. Chair,
Director Abram.
This is just,
yeah, sorry, I just didn't get it in quick enough, but with regards to Director Adams' comment, the motion that we're bringing forward is the purchase of medical equipment. And I believe that might be misconstrued at some point, and maybe it should just go along with what Director Adams was talking about, which is this is capital equipment.
No.
And, you know,
Yeah,
we can call it medical, they can call it.
So I think, Mr. Chair,
Should that not, would that?
if I can jump in. So I think we're back to the original motion, and if the directors want to amend that, I think we're at a spot now where that can happen.
right. That's why I put my hand up.
Okay, I just move that, move an amendment that it's a capital equipment rather than medical.
You want to know where you blew it? With her.
Do you want to move it that says capital equipment?
There's no way in hell a career waitress comes to work in high heels. She'd have blisters and pancakes before lunch. And if she ain't real, then this whole
Where's that conversation coming from?
I have no idea. Okay, so let's back up a second here. Okay, so Director Abram, your amended motion is to change the wording from medical equipment to capital equipment, correct?
Yeah, just so that it broadens it out so they can use it as they see fit within the capital realm.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? Director Cornfield?
Well, no, I've got my one on another part of it.
Okay. Director Kerr?
Thank you, Chair. And I think the request was for funding for medical equipment specifically, not capital equipment, which could be construed as more operational helicopter equipment. But they have a shopping list of medical equipment, which I understood will be provided to us. That it's strictly on the site medical equipment, very high standard of portable equipment.
Yeah, they're one the same, which still goes back to capital. Okay, Director Anderson.
Thank you. I put a suggested amendment in the chat that I think captures some of the discussion that's been had today. And that amendment reads that the funding is subject to receipt by staff of a full budget. And I say staff, I trust that we will receive it eventually, but the attempt there is to not delay it. And further, the SRD right to all other RDs in the proposed service area, challenging them to match our contribution.
Okay, that's got to wait because we've already got amendment on the floor right now.
Oh, apologies.
But as soon as we've
If you
done
take that as the next one, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the amendment motion. Can't see this, too small. That the SRD through regional grant and aid provide team with a one-time grant of $40,000 of purchase of medical equipment and a letter support provided by team, and that the words of medical equipment be changed to capital equipment. Go to Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the amendment motion is simply the word changing from medical to capital. And if that passes, then of course the main motion is changed for the board's consideration. If it does not pass, then it is the original motion still on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Director Abram.
Yes, Mr. Yes, I made the motion strictly based on the presentation that we received. And Miles made it very clear that this was for capital equipment. So if we want to get into the politics with the feds or the province or anybody else about whether or not we should be providing medical equipment, well, then put the word medical in. If you don't use the word medical and you use capital and you leave it up to the experts, which are the team people, they will buy what they said they were going to buy, and they'll tell us what it is, and they'll put our name on it. So, you know, it doesn't really, I don't really care one way or the other. You know, put it either way, as long as it passes, that's fine. But that was the intent of my motion. Excuse me, I'm still speaking. That was the intent of my motion, was to do what we were being asked to do by the delegation, which was capital equipment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call question. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. Thank you.
That's on the amendment.
So now back to the mission that the SRD, the original grant and aid, provide team with a one-time grant for purchase of capital equipment. Moved by.
I had an amendment, another
I've
amendment.
got my hand up.
Director Cornfield, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move an amendment to change the amount of $40,000 to $45,000. And if I get it.
Do I have a seconder? Director Abram?
Abram.
Okay.
Thank you. And if I can just speak to it, when, and then I know a change will be coming about that a letter be provided to other regional districts. And I think it's important that everyone who could benefit from this service should contribute equitably. The way we've done it in the past is it would make it difficult, but if we do $45,000, roughly $1 for every person in the regional district, then it becomes very easy to send off a letter to others to say match the $1 per person. And if smaller communities or smaller regional districts, it does mean that it is more attainable than if you do it on a property assessment basis.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. And Director Moglove.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I won't support the amendment for a number of reasons. Number one, I came into this meeting thinking that 40,000 was too much, in as much as industry so far has only put in 10,000, and that's since November. However, listening to the presentation, I think it is definitely a worthwhile operation. The fact of the matter is, the way the 40,000 or whatever the figure will be is in fact based on assessment, and therefore it's not. If it was based, if each person in the regional district was putting in $1, that'd be one thing. But that's not how it works. It's based on assessment. So I think we leave. I don't understand why we're taking so much time on this. The original motion was for 40,000. Let's just get it done and move on. Thanks.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Director Abram.
Yes, real quick. What we're talking about here is we're mixing things. We've got an amendment to go to 45,000, and then there was a sidebar thrown in by Charlie about the how it's assessed. Well, we already know how this is being assessed. It's being assessed through our general administration function, and this is a line item within the general administration function. So, that's a whole other argument and story rather than just voting on this motion. The allocation of how that money gets brought in is a different story. It's not this motion.
Okay, thank
The
you.
45,000, I totally agree with.
Joe, anything else on the amendment motion to 45? Director Lee.
Yes, I can't support the increase to 45. We only allocated a total of 50,000 for all applications this year, and taking 45 out of that, like taking 90% of all the funds available leaves potentially anyone else going to be short in 2022. And I think we're being really fair in kicking this off with 40,000. I was happy with that. I'm not willing to go higher, not willing to go to 90% of our budget.
Okay, thank you. And Director Cornfield, I'll go for you for the last wrap up.
Thank you, Chair. It has nothing to do with assessment. Everybody knows how we get our money. Everybody else collects their money in the same way. It's if you're going to go out for equitable money, it is really easy to say this is equivalent to $1 per person. When you then ask for what is equitable between regional districts, you can say $1 per person. Whatever that amount determines whatever the rate is for the assessment. So it has nothing to do with how we collect the money. It has everything to do with how we get equitable and making it easier for others to contribute to support what we believe is a good program, or at least I believe is a very good program.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to call question on the amendment. The amendment is from Director Cornfield to move it up to $45,000. Call questions. Anyone opposed?
Lee?
Lee's opposed. Moglov's opposed. Colburn's opposed.
Evans?
Evans opposed. Call carried. And back to the main motion. I guess, Director Anderson, you had amendment.
Thank you. And based on the other amendment that just passed, I offer a slight variation that the funding is subject to receipt by staff of a full budget. And again, I say to staff, trusting we will receive it, but not wanting to hold it up. And further, that the SRD write to all other RDs in the proposed service area, challenging them to match our contribution. This is in the chat if ED wants to just pull it. Match our contribution by contributing $1 per person in their regional district.
Okay, so Edie's typing it up.
And if there's a seconder, I'd speak very briefly.
As soon as we can see it. Does somebody want to second it from the verbal?
Second.
Director Davis, go ahead. Thank you. To Director Anderson.
Yeah, just really briefly. I mean, I too really struggle with the amount we're giving, given the amount we have, and concur with Director Lee. And I'm generally, this is a real stretch for me. But the selling point for me really is that I think that this will leverage so much more money if we take the lead on this and really challenge others. So I supported the last increase, trusting that this would pass and that we would really use this as a challenge opportunity. Thanks.
Cool. And Edie's got it up. So everybody can see the motion. Discussion, Director Colburn and Director Abram.
Although I do, agree with the motion, it's not really truthful because we didn't do it by $1 per person. So challenging them to contribute by a dollar per person from their RD would be okay, but that match piece, because we didn't exactly match a dollar per person, it's semantics and I won't argue about it, but it's just a little funny to me saying that we'll match when we didn't actually do that past the last motion. So I'll leave it at that. I'm in support.
Thank you. Director Abram.
Didn't the last motion pass, the amendment?
Yes, it did.
Thank you. I wouldn't have put this wording forward unless it had.
Okay, Director Abram?
Okay, I don't agree with this amendment for the $1, mainly because of the fact that Miles in his presentation mentioned that another regional district or area is giving $176,000, and I imagine that's probably more than $1 per person in a regional district that is less populated than we are. So I think this limits what people might want to put in. I mean, somebody in an area that has, you know, numerous accidents every year that requires a service might want to put in $5 per person if you know, figured out what it is. So I think this is a very limiting clause, and it should just be left out.
Okay,
So
thank
I'm
you.
going to vote against it.
Go.
Not seconded.
I don't see any further discussion on your question. Question on the amendment. Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed, but
Yes.
it's not seconded.
Yes, it was.
Oh, it doesn't say so on the screen.
Director Davis seconded.
Okay.
So again, I'll call question for the second time. Anyone opposed?
Lee?
Abe,
Seeing no more, I'll call in favor. Thank you. On to the next item, North Island
Mr.
9.
Chair, before we move on to the next item.
Hang on a sec, Brenda.
Okay.
The motion on the floor as amended is now up for a vote.
Okay. So now we need to vote on the whole motion as amended. Can I have a mover?
So moved.
Director Colburn, seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield.
Question.
All in favor? Sorry, anyone opposed?
Lee?
Lee. Carried. And Director Lee, you had a question.
I was just going to suggest that it would be nice for future, if we have similar applications, or even for this application, to provide the applicants with an application form, which would be similar to the grant and aid form that the electoral areas provide to their constituents, that contains financial statements, and all the information that we would need before considering a grant.
Yep.
Without us having to second guess everything like we have been on this.
Okay.
Just the application form should be developed for the Regional Grant and Aid Service to provide to applicants so that the board can get full and fulsome information about their financial status and also a description of what exactly they're applying for.
Okay.
And what they'll use the money for.
I'll go see it.
Second.
Well,
There's no motion there, Director Abram.
just maybe I can clear this up. Staff are working on a policy for the regional grants, so we can include a template for an application, and that's likely going to be brought back to the board in the next meeting or two.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
great.
Okay. Under staff reports, item 2, North Island 911 Corporation resolution. Motion to receive the report.
I'll move receipt, please.
Moglove and Colburn, CO, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the last meeting, there was a bunch of shareholder resolutions that the 911 board wanted the endorsement of this board to pass. And subsequent to that, I connected with the CVRD, and they provided the written explanations to all the questions that the board had, and happy to answer any additional questions the board has.
Any questions? Seeing none on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And item B,
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move that the regional district consent to the shareholder resolutions of the North Island 911 Corporation as requested by the Comox Valley Regional District.
do I have a seconder?
Second.
Dr. Coburn? Any discussion?
Was, just a sec.
Director Cornfield?
So were the clauses changed? The ones of concern about the financials?
If I can, Mr. Chair, I think what the CVRD has done is give us an explanation of why they wanted these resolutions bypassed, if you will. So the resolutions being sufficient for this board would indicate that the board would be happy to provide an exception to these resolutions, if you will.
I can elaborate. As per the report, so the North Island 911 practice.
Excuse me, but I have the floor. And I asked a question. I was getting an answer from our CAO.
Okay, well, all it was, you had your director that sits on that committee.
I don't really care.
Excuse me?
I'm asking this board.
Okay, well then, after the CEO answers you, then come back to me and then I'll acknowledge you.
Right.
So if I can, maybe to clear it up. So the board had some questions about why why the 911 board had wanted these resolutions, these exceptions for these shareholder resolutions, and they have provided an explanation for that. So should those explanations be adequate for the board, then we would provide the waiver for the financial statements, the auditor, and the other resolutions that were requested.
Anything else to add, Director Cornfield?
We're around the appointment of the auditor as one thing, and it says until this happens, until this occurs, it's suggested that the shareholders continue to endorse this insurance to ensure compliance with the Business Corporations Act. And that's the way I think it should be done.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Anyone else? Just Director Cornfield. Call carried. Thank you. Next item, number 3, extended power outages, background report. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
So moved.
Coburn.
Second. Wally.
Wally, thank you. And CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think there's much to add. The board requested that staff, based on the discussion, do a background report, which we have put points in there, and happy to answer any questions or make any additions or changes.
Any discussion on the receipt? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the background report regarding power outages and related issues attached to the February 25th report from the CEO be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Coburn and Wally, and Director Anderson, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I think that what I was hoping to see in this report is probably not realistic to ask staff to do, and I don't know that if it was really clear what our desire was in this effect. I know it came as a West Coast issue and then it got expanded to the region as a whole. What I think would be really valuable, and maybe it is better to come from another body, I'm not sure, sort of beyond our staff's technical capacity, is to understand more what's happening with the grid. In specific places. Like I expect that the undercapacity to serve on Cortez is different than Zabalas, and how do we as a region or individual elected folks within this region go about trying to advocate to BC Hydro on behalf of our communities, and how do our communities rally understanding the limitations in the service delivery infrastructure. So this was a much more high level, you know, aspirational points around, you know, what we could be lobbying for to, I don't know, UBCM or something. So if there's anybody else that shares that concern, maybe there's some way of redirecting the request. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Hansen and Director Colburn.
Just on that same kind of remark, we had a really great presentation to council from BC Hydro. So I know that they're meeting with people, so maybe that's something that other directors might want to undertake for their communities or electoral areas for the whole of the SRD. So it was a good presentation that gave me a much better understanding of at least our area. So just putting that out there.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? If not, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? No, Martin, did you have your hand question? You're muted, Martin.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button there. The backgrounder looks really good, and it certainly reflected a lot of concerns that I brought forward, but one that it didn't was keeping the hydro right-of-ways properly clear, because that's where a lot of the problems occurred in our area, and I've had this conversation directly with BC Hydro, but I just thought it should be reflected in this backgrounder.
Super, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. What we could do is request BC Hydro rep to do a presentation to the board. I do agree with Director Davis. You know, most of the issues in Gold River were the same thing, was vegetation around the power lines and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't know if the appetite for the board is to, you know, request a presentation from our local Ted Aldenuck to come up and have a discussion or not. That's up to the board.
Can I make comment, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Director Wally.
Thank you. In Sayward, this time I think we only had 25 outages. In the past, we've been out for 5 days at various times. Our whole problem is simply 80 kilometers of freed right-of-way up the highway from Campbell River to Sayward. There's very little that can be done about it, and that's just life in Sayward.
Yeah, that's a problem in a lot of areas, Director Wally. Okay, don't see anything else, so we'll move on.
Yeah, sorry, I have a raised hand.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
I agree with the chair. I would like a hydro to do a presentation to the board.
Okay. Do I have that's in the form of a motion. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Director Lee. Any further discussion, Director Baker?
No, sir.
Okay, so just basically asking the staff to ask BC Hydro rep to come and do a presentation on the board on power outages within the regional district in the North Island, really, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, Director Colburn?
And just using some of the information from the backgrounder that staff has presented to us as some of the possible topics that they could be talking about. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Don't see anything else. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 4, earthquake early warning system. Contract proposals. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Director Wally.
Second.
Director Evans, and I'll go CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick little backgrounder before I let Wolf speak to this. The reason this grant is coming to the Strathcona Regional District instead of the Connected Coast Board, it was NRCan had a grant opportunity, but the grant could only been given to local government where the Strathcona Connected Coast Board was not. So that's the reason why this is coming to the SRD board instead of Connected Coast. I'll let Wolf speak to it.
Thank you. Through the chair and the CAO to the board members, this is a report with the purpose of consider entering into agreements with Natural Resources Canada, and this is for the installation of earthquake early warning systems that is going to serve to rural and remote sites along the north coast of BC. So there are currently 16 sites that they're proposing or they're giving us for funding. very exciting just for the entire communities that are going to benefit from these alerts. So the earthquake early warning system has been designed by Natural Resources Canada to provide earthquakes alerts ahead of the seismic shaking. This is a system that is not designed to determine when an earthquake will happen. It is designed once the earthquake is in place. So these motions will be received by the sensors, and the sensors will provide the alerts. The system will reduce injuries, deaths, system failures, and infrastructure losses due to the earthquakes. So, of course, there are so many other things that need to be done in order for these systems to work, separate to this, but I just want to mention this. Regional district staff and Natural Resources Canada worked really hard from August to December on an application that we were very successful, and we received a letter back in December 1st. With Natural Resources Canada confirmed the funding to our regional district. The scope of work that has been approved includes the supply of the seismic sensors, the installation of those equipment, communications, operations, and maintenance. The total contribution that will be given to our regional district is $1.94 million for the 16 sites, and the completion date is March 2023, which aligns with the completion of other projects that we have related to this. So at this time, we have 2 contracts that are being presented to the board for consideration. The contract 8 is the contribution agreement that confirms the amounts of funding that are available to the SRD. And we have the contract B with the collaboration agreement, which defines the relationships between the SRD and Natural Resources Canada, the responsibilities of each party, and the technical assistance that they provide to us in order to make this project very successful. The recommendation we have in the report is to the first one, just to report to be received from the CAO, and the second recommendation to the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute the contribution and collaboration agreements with Natural Resources Canada. Just one more thing about this report. Following confirmation of funding, we engage Bay-Link Networks to help us with the procurement of the sensors. They have the expertise and the knowledge, and Bay-Link will be managing the installations in accordance with this contract with the Strathcona Connected Coast Network Corporation. I welcome your questions about the earthquake early warning system. If you have technical questions, I'm happy to respond to that. We have included additional information in the report. If you just feel free to also access that as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wolfgang. I have Director Davis with a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I really like this report, and I certainly support the recommendation. I feel like it doesn't go far enough, though. I know for our area, one of my concerns is, and I've raised this before, is installing tsunami sensors, and this is achievable technologically, and certainly in an inlet like where we are, we can have a severe earthquake with no tsunami because we're protected from offshore tsunamis. But yet, if we get subsea subsidence in our inlet, or say a landslide into the inlet, it can trigger a devastating localized tsunami. And I would like to see some sort of sensor built into this. I think this would be a good opportunity to do this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Davis. I'll go to CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is by no means the end of this partnership. What NRCan does is try and find bits of money, and obviously they're looking to partner with the Connected Coast Network, as you know, we have a subsea network deploying. So I anticipate there will be further growth and development as they come across funds and pools of money that we can partner with them with.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. So on receipt, anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And item B, Chair and Corporate Officer be authorized to execute the contribution and collaboration agreements with Natural Resources Canada to install the earthquake early warning system extended network.
So moved.
B, second.
Colburn and Davis. Any further discussion? Call question. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Thank you, Wolfgang. Very good. Item 5, appointment election officers, officials, sorry. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
seconded by Director Coburn. Still anything to go to? Mr. Yates. He threw it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is really an opportunity for the board to decide whether it wants to continue with election officials that it has used in the past, whether it wishes to explore other options, such as going out to others outside the organization, or possibly other options as well. So that's really why it's here today. There will need to be a decision fairly soon by the board because the election season is upon us, and there are a lot of things that the regional district will need to do and prepare in expectation of having elections this fall. So that's why it's here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Item B, Director Lee.
Move that Tom Yates and Edith Watson serve as the chief and deputy chief electoral officers for the 2022 general local elections.
Second.
Director Lee and Director Cornfield. Any discussion? Call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried.
Move C.
Second.
Yeah, move C in second. Thank you. Edie, did you get who moved and seconded? Okay, thank you. Super, thank you. I was flipping papers, I didn't hear. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Item 6, public notice requirements, alternative methods. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Colburn and Cornfield, and I'll go to Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report here today is really to give the board the opportunity, if it wishes, to have staff explore other alternatives to what used to be a requirement up until fairly recently under the Local Government Act, which is that public notices must be published in a local newspaper according to certain time schedules, etc. That has been loosened up somewhat, and so we would suggest it's worth exploring, if for no other reason than possibly saving of money. And so that's why it's here today. Thank you.
Thank you. I got Director Cornfield, Abram, and Lee. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. The only comment I had was on the public notice options. And I noticed there was no option for direct mail. And I know that it's, you can do a direct mail out to the city in Campbell River, and it's cheaper than it is in running ads in the paper, depending on the size. And I think we should have it as an option, depending on the nature of the item. Some items are more complex and require more information, and you wish to do it if they're, especially when the expense is or expenditure would be fairly high, not for the mail out, but for the project or the item, or it may be particularly controversial. So it was just that another option could be direct mail.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Abram.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest, since we don't get the Mirror on Quadra anymore, we used to, but we have other papers, actual print papers, but we also have 2 websites. The regional district has a website and the Mirror has a website. So I think all of those website options should be part of our notification procedure, and that the 2 local papers on Quadra Island that actually serve the outer islands, that it also be part of the process for every public notice that we need to put out.
Okay, thank you. And Director Lee.
I would like to see, all types of notification available, but I don't want to eliminate notification in local print media, because not everyone who votes is tied into electronic communications. And, you know, everyone should be properly notified. And I think the only way to do that is through the print media. And even if it does cost more, it's worth making sure that everyone is aware of the opportunity to vote.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? So on receipt, call question. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And Director Colburn?
I'll make a subsequent that a further report that identifies alternative public notification systems be prepared for us.
I have a seconder.
Second, Abram.
Go. Discussion. Director Lee, do you still have your hand up? Is it up? No.
Oh, no, sorry, excuse me.
Thank you. And Director Cornfield? You're muted, Charlie.
So I just clarity on what they're moving. I thought we've got the report right now, which lists everything there that I've heard any director say, except for direct mail under the public notice options. So why wouldn't we just approve or require a policy or procedure be developed? So could I get clarity on what the motion actually is?
Yep, Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is the board, if it passes this motion, is asking for a further report on draft bylaw, and this must be done through bylaw. No other process will suffice under the law. And to replace or to partly replace the use of newspaper advertising as an exclusive means of notifying the public. And we bring back a report with perhaps different options, what those would look like from a cost perspective or scheduling perspective, and then the board can decide based on that information where it wants to go with this.
Good, thank you very much for the clarity.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further hands up. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Item 7, land use planning service. Motion to see the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, seconder. Director Colburn, thank you. And the CEO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Cool. On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And item B.
I'll move B.
Director Colburn moves B.
Second.
Director Mogul seconded. Any discussion? Director Abram?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Director
Yeah,
Abram?
just one real quick possible friendly, where it says consideration by the Municipal Services Committee to just add and the Electoral Area Services Committee. Should be submitted to both. If we're going to have a board discussion about it, we should have the information to discuss.
Director Colburn?
And I have a problem with that because I don't think that's a friendly. That's I just.
I'll second the amendment.
Director Mogul? No? Okay, so it's not a friendly? Director Anderson?
Yeah, I think this should be for discussion for the whole board. It affects all of us. I'm more than happy to have the discussion. But I would love it to come to the board. So I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to accept an amendment later or.
Okay. Director Mogul?
This is a report to go to the municipal committee. If at that time there's something that we want to move forward to the board, it will obviously come to the board. But this, at the moment, is a discussion at the municipal committee. And so at this point in time, it doesn't have to include the EA because it will eventually come to the board if anything moves forward in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. And Director Cornfield?
It's all right, no problem.
Thank you. And Director Lee?
Yes, this service that you're talking about, land use planning, is the total 100% purview of the electoral areas. And the fact that the municipal committee held discussions in camera without informing the electoral areas which are directly impacted by the discussion. And the fact that it's what?
Point of order.
Director Abram, go ahead.
Brenda, I don't believe we need to be discussing this at this particular time. My amendment that was, I don't know if it was accepted or not, was only to be able to see it go to both committees. That's all.
I totally support it going to electoral areas since this is an electoral area function.
It's not
and it shouldn't be discussed without us.
Director Lee, this is not an electoral area function.
It is.
It's not.
It is.
I don't see any further hands up. I'm going to call question on the motion. Anyone opposed?
Lee.
Hold on, I had the amendment about bringing it to the board, Mr. Chair.
Well, it's coming to the board.
Where are we at?
There's no amendment that you sent in.
No, I just said it verbally that I'd like to see this come to the board and that I would leave it with you, Mr. Chair, whether you want to accept that as an amendment at this time, or I didn't want to cut discussion off.
Okay.
I think the natural flow of this, that it would come to the board, so I don't think that's necessary.
With respect, I would like to be privy and witness and participate in these discussions. So I would like to make an amendment, please.
Okay, go ahead.
That this report comes back to the board. Thank you.
No seconder?
I'll second it.
Director Davis.
And speaking to it then, thank you, Mr. Chair, is, I've been around long enough to understand the municipality's concern. And a decade or more ago, when there was another look at municipal involvement, I fully understand my electoral area colleagues' concern about having it change. I think that there's really good discussion to be had on all sides of this. I'm willing to take a hard look at it, but I think that discussing it in subcommittees of the board or committees of the board only further alienates one from the other, municipal from rural. And I think at this time on something that is so central to the electoral areas and indeed so important to the full board, that it is really worth the respect of giving us all the opportunity to hear each other on this one. Thank you.
Director Moklov.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm opposed to the amendment. The motion on the floor is that there be a report on governance and service options for municipalities that may wish to participate. So this is a discussion at the first instance for municipalities. If and when municipalities want to go any further with this, any kind of report on that will come to the board for full discussion. But the first step is a report to the municipalities. And so there is no point in having a joint session, so to speak, on a report that is aimed at the municipalities and whether or not we want to go any further or look at different options. So I'm very much opposed to the amendment.
Thank you. And I got Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. There was 3 of us that were on when the rule was changed. That's Director Abram, Lee, and myself. That prior to in the 90s, municipalities were required to participate in land use, and we were paying the vast majority for the planning services was paid. Don't shake your head, Brenda.
1% you're paying.
Let me talk on that. We were the first community in the province of BC to look at and withdraw from that service. And that was a long, drawn-out process, very legal, very court, and we were successful. Following that, most other municipalities withdrew from the service. Can we go back in? Absolutely, if we are willing to pay. on the basis, but that is a decision that's made by the municipalities. To say that you want to be part of the discussion is no different than us saying, well, we want to participate in your planning discussions when we think it might affect us, say regarding aquaculture. So what the others are trying to get across is this is just the municipalities or municipal services committee having a discussion about whether or not there's any pros or cons to participating in the land use planning service. And then depending on what happens, it can then be communicated out. But right now we haven't talked or seen any or had any discussion. And that's what the next step is about. And then if there is any action, it'll come back to the board. It can be referred to whomever. But right now it's just a discussion amongst the municipalities. Just like you have discussion just amongst the areas, electoral areas committee.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. So, Director Abram, do you have something on the amendment from Director Anderson?
Yes, I would like to completely agree with Director Moglove. Just leave it as it is.
Okay.
The way the motion is right now is just fine. I'm sorry I brought up adding EASC. Just leave it to the Municipal Services Committee to look at the report, discuss it amongst themselves, and if there's anything that needs to come to the board, I'm sure our staff will bring it to the board. I'm perfectly happy with the motion the way it is.
Thank you, Director Abram. Okay, so I'm going to call question on the amendment from Director Anderson. Is anyone opposed?
Moglove, I'm opposed.
Evans opposed.
Cornfield opposed.
Abram opposed.
Baker's opposed.
Colburn's opposed.
Kerr's opposed.
Kerr's opposed.
Adams opposed.
Adams opposed.
Davis opposed.
Davis opposed. Unger's opposed. It's defeated. So go back to the motion on the floor. Call questions. Anyone opposed?
Lee.
Director Lee. Motion's carried. Thank you, Directors. We're in the bylaws. Bylaw number 1, bylaw 432433, OCP rezoning, Quad Island Links. Motion received the report.
Receipt, Abram.
Second.
Second, Lee, and I'll go CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've had a request from the applicant to postpone the public hearing dates that we currently have for April into a November date or further. So we provided a couple options for the board should they wish.
Any discussion on receipt?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I've got my hand up, I believe. Well, there it is. Okay, I totally agree. You know, if that's what they want to do, it was their initiative to come forward. We had a date set for April 27th, and they would like it moved further along. And they suggested November 7th. In speaking with staff, I'm just going to say that I would like to see that just the wording in the motion just say in the month of November, because we don't know what we have coming up in November.
So if I can, Director
So,
Abram,
in the
option A might suffice that. It says dates after October, which can be November, December.
Okay.
Okay, however you want to do it, that's fine with me. Just
Yeah.
so that it gets moved
No, it's
after October.
It's how the board wants them to do it. Okay, I don't see any other on receipt.
Okay.
I don't see anything else on receipt. I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. And do we have an option, Director Cornfield or Director Colburn?
So I'll move option A in the staff report, that is that they evaluate possible dates after October 22nd for a public hearing.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Second.
Director Evans, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 2, bylaw 451, 2022-2026 financial plan. Motion to
Move
see the,
receipt.
Director Lee.
Second.
Director Adams, CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a request for final adoption of the financial plan as required to receive public input and comments. To date, we have received none, and so our request is that the board adopt the 2022-2026 financial plan.
Any discussion? Director Cornfield.
Just very quickly, with the increase from, or at least from the draw that was just made on the grants to 45,000, leaving us 5,000 left. You had mentioned previously that there was a process for adding money to it. So do we need to amend this bylaw to increase the base amount, or can that be done at any time?
Yeah, at this point, I would advise just to leave it as it is. These are line items within large budgets, so which we haven't even had these line items in previous years. So my suggestion would be, at this point, just leave it.
Thank you very much.
Yep. On receive the report, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item
Move to
B.
receive the public input report.
Seconder.
Second.
Director Evans.
Evans.
Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item C, bylaw 451B, give third reading.
Give
Third.
reading.
Adams
Second.
and Evans. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say one thing at this point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to really recognize our, can you hear me? Our financial officer, Mike Harmston, for putting together an excellent document, and Area D people are going to be very happy with the very minuscule increase in taxes, in spite of the fact that the BC Assessment Authority shifted $190,000 of managed forest taxation over to the residential. We've managed to keep the costs down to Area D residents, and there's no increase in water rates either. So everyone's going to be a lot relieved about this budget, especially after the assessments that they received.
Great, thank
from
you.
the BC assessment.
Director Anderson.
Thank you. I have a subsequent that I would either like you to take or take as a notice of motion. Either I don't mind. It speaks more to the process of things. As this board knows, a couple meetings ago, I brought up an amendment suggestion, and that was deemed to be too late in the process, and totally fair that the board didn't go for it because it didn't have any staff background or really opportunity for substantive discussion. And then the last meeting, I shared my concern around wanting some more opportunity in the budget process to have substantive discussion at the board after the assessment information had come out. So I have a motion that I would like, Mr. Chair, you to consider either today or the next meeting that just speaks to future budget cycles.
Yeah, Director Anderson, I would take as a notice of motion for next meeting, please.
Right, I'd happily put it in the chat for such. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on C, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item D, bylaw 451, being 2022-2026 financial plan and capital expenditure program bylaw, be reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
Move adoption.
Second.
Director Adams. Any question? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And I'd like just to add on too to Mike, you and your staff. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Item 3, bylaw 457, Oyster River Flood Protection. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Seconder. Lee and Abram, and CO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Move
Item-
first reading.
Item B.
Second.
Thank you. Lee and Adams. Any discussion? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item C.
Move second and third.
Second.
Director Adams, Lee and Adams. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Carried. Item D.
And move adoption,
And second.
or pardon me, that the approval of the electors for bylaw 457 be authorized to be obtained using an alternate approval process.
Correct.
That's what the motion is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Director Adams, you're good with that?
Yep.
Go. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item 2, TELUS Tower on Cortez, motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm missing correspondence in my paperwork.
Yeah. Move receipt
Correspondence,
of all.
motion to receive the correspondence?
Move receipt of all. Pull 2, please.
Okay, motion to receive 1 and 3? Or 1, 3, and 4?
4.
And, yeah.
Moved
So
by
moved.
Director Lee, second by
Second.
Director
Gabriel.
Cornfield. No, any discussion? Call question, anyone opposed? Carried. And item 2,
Move receipt.
Second.
and moved to second, Anderson and Colburn, and Director Anderson.
Yeah, I just think this is a good opportunity for us to reach out to the Clahous First Nation, and for the chair, perhaps, if you want direction or a resolution, to just write to Chief and Council, congratulating them on this endeavor. It's a big addition to the space that will be under their planning purview, and a big effort on their part.
Okay, so after receipt. Don't see any questions. All in favor? Oh, Director Anderson? Yeah, Director Adams, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I had put the question into the CAO, but just to share with the board, that just to confirm that there aren't any issues. I know that the Whaletown Road currently goes through an existing reserve, and the Squirrel Cove Road will now go through what is the proposed new reserve. And just that there aren't any issues in regards to operation, maintenance, servicing, and who covers that, to confirm that it's MOTI, or is it the electoral area, or is it the band, or is it a partnership between both, just to secure the transportation corridor on the island.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding, and I believe it's confirmed by the order, is that the existing public road rights-of-way are excluded from the addition to reserve, so they are not changing. It is simply the land that bounds the road right-of-way that is being transferred into reserve status.
Thank you.
And Director Cornfield?
Mine is in the same vein as Director Adams. I noticed looking at the map that is it Torque Road is accepted from the drawing, as is Whaletown, but nothing after that. And so if it's, we have had issues here in our community and other reserve lands where roads were not exempt. And I think if you look at the diagram, you can see that the unshaded portions, oh, never mind. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
It was saved and accepted when I read the description, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Director Cornfield. Any further discussion? On receipt? Call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And Director Anderson, did you have a subsequent?
Yeah, simply that the chair read a letter of congratulations to the Clahous Chief and Council for this effort.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Second by Director Lee. No discussion. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now we're on to Telus Tower on Cortez Island. Oh,
No.
Green plan,
oh, so,
Director Abram.
oh, Director,
Move the report from Director Abram from Marine Plan Partnership update.
thank you. Seconder.
Second,
Thank you.
Mr. Abram.
Thank you. Anything to add, Director Abram?
Nope,
Okay,
it's all
thank you.
there.
Super, thank you. On receipt, I'll call question.
My hand's up.
Sorry, Director Cornfield, go ahead.
Yes, I sit on MAP with, as a city's representative, and just at this time to let people know that on March 29th and 30th, there will be a fisheries economic workshop being held in Campbell River. Attendance is extremely limited and very select to focus in on actionable outcomes following. So we'll keep you posted on that as well.
Great, thank you, Director Cornfield.
You're welcome.
Don't see anything further. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now I can go to number 2. Somehow, I don't know, I missed a page, but I won't look at who maybe missed it. Anyways, item 2, Telus Tower on Cortez Island. Motion to receive the
Move
report.
receipt.
Director
Move
Lee.
receipt.
Lee, and I didn't hear who seconded it.
Anderson, second.
Thank you. And I'll go CEO first. Nothing to add? Director Anderson?
Thank you. Really, this is more than anything to put on the public record and in front of any of those of you that care to look through the extensive history on this. There's been a lot of communication both with TELUS and the public, and the SRD. This has come before the SRD on a couple of occasions. I'm getting mixed messages from TELUS about whether they intend to approach the regional district requesting land use concurrence on a tower in the Gorge Whaletown area. I guess they haven't yet decided whether they will or not. And so this report really is twofold. One, most importantly, is to ask that the regional district stand by its current position of requiring TELUS to undertake a more fulsome engagement process before providing land use concurrence if we get that. And so in anticipation of that potential request, I wanted to put for you on the public record the level of community input and engagement that has happened to date, and that almost all of the communication I have received is not in support of a tower at this time without sufficient community consultation and in this particular way. There were 3 proposed towers. It seems like they've for now abandoned the tower in Squirrel Cove. Their last communication to me said that they didn't need a macro cell in Squirrel Cove, which I gather to mean a tower, and therefore the microcells that they've installed would suffice. They are pursuing a tower on there was the treaty lands of the Tla'amin Nation at Pukyanam, and I've given a presentation to the Executive Council at Tla'amin, and they have indicated that they are requiring of TELUS to do at least some kind of community Zoom call, which is certainly better than nothing. And so if this comes forward from TELUS, I'll certainly have more to say, but there's just been a lot of communication and letters that don't land anywhere on the public record. And if it comes to our purview, I wanted you to know about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Director. Don't see any hands up, so on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. No management report, new business, Director Cornfield. Solid waste?
Thank you, Chair. Tomorrow we have our solid waste management board meeting. So today I got a call from a company called GRT Environmental, who have recently, after 3 years of working, commissioned a decontamination process, which is new technology in Nanaimo. With the support of the Nanaimo Regional District, but also the city of Nanaimo. So they can take contaminated soils and materials, including organics, that are contaminated and tend to lie fallow and what we call brownfield sites. And they have a patented process that allows that to be treated and reused. And it results in about a 80% reduction of landfill material, where they can actually clean the material, sort it, separate it, sell it. And there's about 20% residual of clays that can be used as cover material. It is currently being used for cover material at the Nanaimo landfill. And I will going to bring this up tomorrow, so I would appreciate a resolution to refer it to the Solid Waste Advanced Technologies Committee.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so we received his verbal, and at the same time, he made a motion, and it was seconded, correct?
Correct.
I'm okay with that.
What's the motion?
Just to the, Director Cornfield's gonna bring this forward tomorrow, and he's looking for a resolution that it be referred to the Solid Waste Action Team, SWAT team.
Advanced Technologies.
Advanced Technology. For tomorrow, on tomorrow's agenda at Solid Waste.
Just point of order, I'm just unclear how this board, we would refer Director Cornfield's verbal report. We don't have anything to actually refer, though. I appreciate the heads up. Just not sure what the requested action is.
I believe Director Cornfield is going to introduce that motion tomorrow at the committee, and that resolution will get supported. That's what I anticipate.
Yeah, that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
Not that we're actually moving a motion right now.
No, it was just to get information so that you as board members were provided the most opportunity.
For discussion.
No surprises. Yeah.
Okay. Director Adams.
Thank you. And that's what I was seconding, is just for receipt of the information. Just to also share with you that I also have had conversations separate from Director Cornfield with the proponent, and look forward to this being introduced at the Regional Solid Waste Board for discussion. And I have also passed along the Ministry of Environment contact for the proponents to also reach out to them as well. So that's just for information.
Great, thank you. Okay, so on receipt of Director Cornfield, anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Amendment item. Do we need to move?
Move receipt of the report on the VHA contract, 3-year renewal.
I'll move that the addendum item be considered first.
Thank you. Seconder on that?
Second.
Thank you, Director Adams. On receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. On to the report. Motion to receive the report from the CAO.
Move receipt.
Move receipt.
Director
Evans.
Lee, Director Evans, and I'll go CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what this contract is, this agreement is with VHA for the funding support for the Community Health Coordinator. We have been working on this contract with VHA for close to 6 months now. We've had the position vacant for 3 or 4 months, unable to fill it because of not having a contract to fund the position. It was yesterday at about 2:30 that they finally forwarded me the agreement saying that it needed board endorsement and signed by the 22nd of March. So I apologize for the lateness of coming, but they didn't really leave me much choice. So what this is a 3-year extension to fund the Community Health Coordinator.
Thank you. On receipt, any question? Director Evans?
I'll leave it, sorry, to the next section. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call question on receipt then. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, that a proposed service contract between Island Health and the SRD be for a period of November 1st, 2021 to October 31st, 2024 be approved, and the chair and corporate officer be authorized to finalize execute the contract.
Move B.
Second.
Evans and Coburn, and Director Evans.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just really pleased that this has finally come to fruition. I know it's been a really challenging time, not only in recruitment, but just to have this this contract finally signed and the ability to move forward with a coordinator that clearly the impact that having that person in place is going to have on a lot of the goals of not only the community health network, but ones that are really aligned with what Strathcona Regional District wants to achieve as well. So just really glad to see this finally confirmed.
Thank you, Director Evans. I don't see any further hands up. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Item T, closed session, report of the CEO be received.
Oversee.
Second.
Colburn and Lee. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, closed meeting be held immediately following.
Move B under sections 91A, C, G, I, J, and O of the community charter.
Second, Colburn.
Colburn. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried.
Move termination.
Termination is moved. Second by
Second.
Adams. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried.